Alright you guys, I'm back with another special effects video today. This is going to be on some bloody knuckles. I don't know if it was just me or I hung out with a rough crowd in middle school, but we played that game Bloody Knuckles with a quarter and you'd spin it, and whoever didn't spin it while it was going on the table, you had to flick it. Whoever missed got the quarter slid at them as hard as they could on the table, and we called it Bloody Knuckles. Did anyone else play that? Anyway, what I'm doing right now is giving you a rundown of the products I'm going to be using. What I'm showing you here is this synthetic wax that is basically a scar wax from Mayron. That is the Graftobian Blood Gel, which is one of my faves, and then this tool. The first palette I showed you is an alcohol-based special effects palette, and I'll be using that for color. So what I'm doing right now is just putting some lotion on the hand that I am not going to be applying the wax to. This is the stickiest stuff in the whole entire world. So if you don't put any lotion or oil on your skin before you start to work with this, it will stick to your hands like crazy and be impossible to do anything with. So what I'm doing right now is just taking about a pea size of this wax, and I am just flattening it out into a circle, and then I'm just going to be placing this over my knuckle, and I'm going to be doing this for each one with the exception of my thumb because that wouldn't really show with what I'm doing. And then with my fingers, I'm just warming up the product and smoothing it down so that there is no line between the wax and my actual skin. Smoothing this wax out is definitely something you want to take your time on. You don't want to skip over that because that is going to lay the base for this entire look, and if that is not completely smooth, it is just not going to turn out the way you want it to. So you'll need to reapply the lotion periodically. I just put some on this little metal mixing plate that I have, and I'm just applying that as needed so that this doesn't get stuck to my fingers and pull up from my knuckles. You also want to make sure you flatten this out a pretty good bit before you stick it onto your knuckle. It just makes it easier to work with. So you want to have enough of a thickness so that when we do the cuts into it, it doesn't look like there's nothing there, but you also don't want it overly thick to make your knuckles look completely unrealistic. So if they were bloodied up like this, obviously they'd be a bit swollen. So if they're a little thick looking, that's totally okay, but you just don't want it to be completely out of the realm of possibilities thickness, if that makes sense. So while I'm doing this, for real, did anybody else play this game, or was I just a really weird child in middle school? It was like, we would do it before school started. We would all gather in like the lunchroom area, and they have the tables set up and everything, and people would bring these quarters, and basically you would just put it on the table and you would hold it upright and like flick it with your finger so it would spin, and then anybody playing would go around in a circle and flick it to keep it spinning, and then if anybody flicked it and it went flat, then they would literally slide the quarter as hard as they could across the table to hit your knuckles. Thinking back on this, it's literally the most demented game ever. I don't know why I was ever playing that. But anyway, moving right along, I'm going to be taking my alcohol palette, which I've used in my last couple of special effects tutorials, and I went in a little more detail about that there. But before I get into that, I'm just taking a translucent powder on a big brush, and I'm just applying this over the wax. For one, it gives this paint something to stick to, and for two, it kind of cuts the shine out so it looks more realistic. When it's super duper shiny like that, it just kind of has that fake look. So as you'll see, it's kind of flattening it out a little bit and making it look more real. So what I'm doing here is just taking a concealer brush, and I've mixed my alcohol palette with the Blood Tone as well as the Bruise Tone. And what I'm doing here is just giving that a light wash of color over all of my knuckles. This is just going to give it that freshly irritated look. You know, when you have any kind of trauma or cut to your skin, the surrounding area is always going to have a really irritated look, especially if your fingers were banged up this bad. So I'm just going to be putting that all over the knuckles that I am going to be working on, and then we're going to move on to the Bruise Tone. And this one is just going to be a little bit more intense. I'm placing this right where I'm going to be putting the cuts, and this just kind of gives it a little bit more of that impact look. So that's going to be like right where you got hit by the quarter or whatever. Maybe this could be from punching a wall. I don't know. You could bloody up your knuckles many different ways. So after I've got this the way I like it, I'm just going to take a tiny little bit of that color and drag it downwards so that it's not so focused on the knuckle. I wanted it to have that color kind of spreading outwards towards my fingers and then up towards the top of my hand, just to make sure that it has a really nice gradient effect and it doesn't look too fake, like there's just a whole bunch of color in one spot and then in the surrounding area, even around the surrounding area, that it's not completely just plain and untouched. I'm just going to take the setting powder and set it one final time once I have all this color the way I want it, just to lock everything in, and then again to cut the shine, because as we were placing that down we kind of lost that original mattifying effect that this powder gave. So we're just going to set that really quickly and then we are going to move on to our cuts. So this little tool that I was scraping out the wax with, I'm just taking the side of that and just jabbing that right into my knuckles diagonally, or wait, hold up, vertically? Horizontally. Yes, horizontally, that is the correct term. And just to make sure it doesn't stick, I'm putting some lotion on this, and then I'm just going to continue to do this across all of my knuckles, and then take the other end that has a point and slightly peel that open just back a little bit further than the original cut did. So I'm just going to make sure that I do all 4 knuckles and make sure that those gashes are big enough to fit some blood in. And now on to the best part. This is like my favorite blood product. That is the weirdest thing to say, but I love this blood paste by Graftobian. There's like liquid blood, there's blood gel, and there's blood paste, and there's like fresh scab. I have like all of them, and this one just works so well for these types of cuts. So I'm just taking that same concealer brush, I did just briefly clean it off, and then just on that flat edge, I'm grabbing the littlest amount of product and I'm just stabbing, oh my gosh, we're getting really physical here. I am just putting that right into each of the little gashes with the very tip of this brush. I don't want it to be too messy right off the bat because I want the most product to be focused right into that gash, and then we'll smear it out here in a minute. Once you have a lot of the blood product focused right into that cut, you can then just kind of take your brush and dab it around the outside, because obviously if you were actually cut, you wouldn't have perfect little gashes. You're going to have some blood in different places. So after you do that, you are finished. This is the final look. This would go great with any Halloween costume. If you're going to be a zombie or some kind of like psycho killer or something, I don't know. This is getting really weird here, but this is the final look. So I hope you guys enjoyed this special effects tutorial. Thank you so much for tuning in to another day of my 30 days of Halloween series. I'm having so much fun with this so far. So don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow.